to get more analysis on this unfolding situation in Sudan with Martin Plaut. He joins us from London, where he's an Africa analyst with the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. Martin, good to have you on this news hour. Thanks for joining us. This power struggle that's playing out right now in Sudan is quite complicated. These were two men who actually joined forces to overthrow Omar al-Bashir, but now they're at each other's throats. What does each man want here?
In a word, power and money. There is an old saying, which I'm sure you're aware of, that you can't have two bulls in a field. And at the moment, there are two bulls in a field. And the National Army, the SAF, was basically feeling that they were being pushed out of the field by the RSS, which has much more money and many more people. And that is at the heart of the issue. Who controls the country? And Hemeti, who is with the RSF, is extraordinarily ambitious and has worked very, very hard to push the army into second place. And that really is, I think, at the heart of all of this.
So money and power at the heart of all of it, as you say. But how much of this violence is also happening because of years of involvement behind the scenes from other countries like the UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, as well as Eritrea?
All of those have played a part, and a big part. I mean, the UAE and the Saudis have put money into both sides at various times. Don't forget that there were Sudanese forces that fought in Yemen against the Houthi, which were being opposed by both the Saudis and the UAE. So a lot of Saudis have died doing this. But at the heart of all of this, perhaps, is the gold mining, and the gold mining, which is currently largely controlled by Hemeti, in alliance with the Russians and the Wagner Group. And let me just read you out two sentences which were published by Bloomberg news agency last Thursday. It said around 36 Russians workers were questioned at a mine for gold smuggling earlier this year. It signaled an escalation in the simmering power struggle between Sudan's military and a rival militia, that's basically Hemeti, who has forged close ties with Russia. And I think I think the proximity of these two events, the fact that they seized this person who was smuggling gold or allegedly smuggling gold out of Sudan for Hemeti, probably, because he owns that mine, and the links between that, and don't forget that Putin also needs lots of money to prosecute his war in Ukraine. That's the nexus where you see the origin of a lot of this. At the same time, the army has very close links with the Egyptians, and the Egyptians are also not very keen on this transition to democracy in the country. After all, they don't have democracy either. So it's a multifaceted crisis, which means that the role of the three African leaders who've just been given the mandate to go there and mediate is going to be exceptionally difficult.
It's going to be difficult, but can it actually even be effective? I mean, you've got the African Union, you've got the Arab League, you've got leaders from around the world calling for calm, which we know often nobody really adheres to that. So, I mean, is a ceasefire at all possible? Or are we going to see more of a prolonged conflict that, of course, only worsens the situation for civilians in Sudan?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. And a lot of the fighting is now in very built-up areas, particularly in Khartoum, and people are terrified. And there are plenty of fighting going on in all sorts of parts of the rest of Sudan, which is very, very worrying. And, at least 100 deaths, probably many more. But I don't see a way of mediating until it's clearer who is winning. If it becomes clear that one side is winning, and at the moment, it looks as if the army is beginning to push the rapid forces, the SRF, out of areas. That looks as if it's happening, but it's not clear. Until you have one side that's winning and the other side accepts, well, actually, we can't hold on, then you can have mediation. It's very, very difficult to get a mediated situation where both sides believe they can still win and therefore have a lot to gain from going on fighting. But, the army does have the Air Force with them. They've got heavy artillery. They've got tanks. They can really pushed hard against them. We'll have to see. It's not clear at this stage who is going to win. But until it becomes clearer, I don't think mediation will work. But I wish them well. I mean, good luck to them. And, President Ruto, after all, of Kenya, who's going along, has just managed to negotiate a settlement in the tragic war that was in Tigray in Ethiopia. So he has a track record of success. Well, let's see if he can do it in Sudan as well.
We're only 3 days into the fighting. What do you see as being the immediate possible regional impact of all of this? Because, of course, Sudan's in a region that's also going through a terrible humanitarian crisis right now because of the drought.
Well, quite, but I'm afraid, when you have fighting between rival leaders, they don't give much of a thought to populations and the suffering of populations. That's often the case. I'm afraid it's tragic. But, I just don't see how you're going to get a resolution at this stage. This is the fighting stage. Once that has developed a bit further, we'll perhaps know where we're going. But I mean, one of the interesting things is that and it's worth just remembering this, is that one of the first things that the SRF did was to go to a northern airfield and take captive Egyptian airmen and soldiers who were there. Now, that in a sense showed you what their priority was to try and reduce the role of the army, which has its much closer links with Egypt, and to try and reduce the Egyptian control. Now, what's going to happen to those people who've been taken captive? We don't know. Meanwhile, the Eritreans are also deeply involved. They've had a lot of links with Hemeti. They will want to have their share of the cake if they possibly can. This is why it is such a difficult conflict to resolve, because everybody has a hand in this, and everybody is, in a sense, wants their candidate to win. And until it's a bit clearer, I just don't think there's any way that you can have a resolution to this conflict.
Everyone wanting a piece of the pie, so to speak. Martin Plaut, you've broken that down so well for us. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you very much.